Hey, fellow humans, welcome to Unraveling the Shoulds. You know all of those stories in our minds that are built upon who we thought we should be? Well, we're going to unravel those. We're going to journey into the quiet magic of everyday life. Those moments where each small thought holds a thread that can unravel the story of who we thought we were. As those threads fall away, what emerges is our mountaintop self. The true soul of us that is vast and free and whole. Through myth, philosophy, and lived experience, we'll discuss and walk this path together, unraveling into the truth, remembering who we've always been. How about we finally stop shoulding all over ourselves?
Oh, it feels so nice to sit down. I'm on camera.
Hi.
So it usually takes me a second to be like,
Okay, so the basic premise in our test pilot project.
test pilot project, ready, set.
Ooh,
I like it.
okay.
All right. So if you were to say, and let's just put this out there just to kind of start talking about it and get the juices flowing. If you were to say what this podcast is about, what your intention is overall, and I know that's very broad, but if you could condense it into a short phrase, what would you say it is?
I would say it is rooted in the seemingly insignificant everyday moments that we write off as that's just the way I am. That could actually be a guidepost to our most enlightened self. As many times we will write off, oh, I'm just a stickler for being on time, to make an excuse for the mental bullying we put ourselves through when we're 30 seconds late.
Yeah. And you and I have talked about the idea of this podcast coming together, and the I think individually for each one of us in the what is happening? What is happening? That question, what is happening? And you said something about it becoming the unraveling. So if that's the overarching, we are talking about unraveling. I mean, there is so much that we could go on and on about with unraveling. And what you just said right now is the seemingly, how did you phrase it? The seemingly
Insignificant.
Every
day. This happens every day.
Yeah.
So we write it off very quickly, and the brain is designed to write it off because it's not necessary for your survival. So there's this filtering system that just goes like, yep, I've already learned that being 3 minutes late says something deeply about my character, and that's why I'm going through this huge internal bullying, but I'm just going to write it off and store that feeling inside of my body, not really deal with it because I got bills to pay.
Yeah, you just use the words internal bullying, and I think there are so many themes that we're going to get into and discuss. What are some of the overarching ideas that you want to bring forward in this podcast as we start to get talking about it? Of I don't know if trends is the right word, but for you in your own life experience that you're like, oh, here we go again. Oh, here we go again. And then it's that question of what are we doing? How am I now once again unraveling? How am I now at this place? What are those words that you would like to kind of put out there and then put some definition behind?
A lot of times you'll hear me say, answer the question. So you literally just said, what am I doing? That's one question that we ask all the time, and we rarely answer it. We're just like, oh, what am I doing? And we don't answer the question. And when we begin to actually answer the question, we start to unravel. That's the unraveling. We ask it over and over and over again, but we don't answer it. So what am I doing beating myself up for being 5 minutes late? There is a deep answer in that. So we will answer that question and we will understand that the inner bully keeps the pattern of bullying the norm. And I don't believe that we can shame ourselves into anything. We can't shame ourselves into fitness. We can't shame ourselves to go to the gym. We can't shame ourselves to do anything, because it's just not lasting. Because we might wear the mask or the performer that we had to beat ourselves up to get to the gym, because we're there at 5 o'clock in the morning. But we don't believe that we deserve a healthy connection to our body. So it's fleeting and likely not going to last.
Yeah. So I have young children. I have a almost 6-year-old and almost 9-year-old. And the shame element, I mean, it is so easy as a parent. I will admit, I have had plenty of times where I have shamed them into doing something because I'm just like at my wit's end of like, how do I get them to do what I want them to do? And they have their own agenda, which they should, and we should encourage that to a certain degree and help guide and shape them. However, the shaming, it feels like it gets implemented at such a young age. And there are things that we can talk about, I know we are going to talk about, that help us realize that we're still just doing as adults to what we were doing or what we were kind of presented with as children growing up.
Yes, that'll be a very common theme, is that I call them our living room selves. And when I say living room selves, it's 6, 8, 10 years old, navigating and becoming the identity that you hold up today in the environment with your parents. And that doesn't always equal who I am. That equals who I was told I needed to be. And now the inner bully at 51 years old is still in there, navigating through this negotiation of my worth back from that living room.
Yeah.
And that's when we go, what am I doing? That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And these conversations, the promise for myself, for the listener, is open the door and everything you want is on the other side of fear.
That created an image for me of literally opening up the door. It's the action, it's the taking, it's walking through the door. There's no avoiding that though, right?
No, there's no avoiding it.
And it's much harder to get through the window.
Yeah. I'll just peek in. Well, and the door is leading where? It's leading to the living room.
Okay, so let's just take a step back real quick, because I started asking you about these almost like glossary terms that we're going to talk about. We're going to get into quite a bit as we move forward. You've talked about shame, you've talked about worthiness already, you've talked about your childhood self, the living room, identity. So these are...
Just to name a few.
Woo! Okay, how much time do we have? Are there other glossary terms that, like, if we just throw out there and somebody was tuning in real quick, they might be like, what are you talking about? What?
Yeah, a big one I say a lot is addiction. And it's a harsh word because it's supposed to be a harsh word, especially in the context of the shadow work. So when we talk about the wound and we talk about the shadow, what we are really talking about, what am I doing? I'm participating in something that I don't want, but I'm still doing it, suggesting that I need it. That is an addiction. I don't want to continue to use this substance to numb my pain, but I need to because I can't get through it any other way. That's what we would call a physical addiction. What we're talking about are non-physical, subconscious addictions that point to why we drink, that point to why we numb with external fill in the blank, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, food, stuff, money.
Codependent,
all of it.
Yeah.
So it would say codependency is the ripple effect from a non-physical subconscious addiction to needing to be needed.
Wow. I mean, that cuts deep for me, like hearing that. It creates like a feeling or sensation in my body. And one other thing, oftentimes when I'm talking to friends, family members, or even you, which I consider the family friend, right? Like a friend that's become family. There's a feeling I'm very much a feeler and I respond that way. And I've recognized recently that not everybody is like that. There's not just one way to process, and yet we're trying to interact in this world and try to figure out how we can be in relationships with one another. And oftentimes I'm assuming people are responding the same exact way that I am, and it's, I guess if you think of like a crayon box, there's like all these different colors, and to understand all the different facets of the inner workings of each one of us is pretty fascinating. So I again go back to that glossary of these terms, because we're going to get deeper and deeper into these conversations and understand even just the idea. When you say addiction, it can be a bit triggering for some people.
Absolutely. Absolutely, especially if I have struggled through a physical addiction, right? And so that will be lovingly held, and an understanding that I don't mean that flippantly. I mean that as the core wound. When I say walk through the door and everything you want is on the other side of fear, it's that. And you think quitting a physical addiction is hard? This is what I believe is the root of it. So it's not only the root of it, it's what the identity has already told you you had to continue in order to stay alive. It's not like I just need people to need me because I'm selfish. I became codependent as a lifeline, as a coping mechanism, as something that was going to keep me safe as a child. Yeah. So now to suggest that I'm just going to let it go,
it's not as easy as snapping your fingers or flipping a light switch on, is it?
No, it's pretty difficult. And to your point of another word we'll use often is how it stores in the body. That would be somatics. And some people are in touch with their body. They'll be associated with their body to be able to feel where the wound is erupting. If you're disassociated from your body, or perhaps numbing, it's going to have a harder time resonating, and you might go into the brain about it instead. That's all based on the individual and how they process the world. Am I an empath? Am I logical? Am I more of a male brain thinker, a female feeler? Am I more, and when I say male and female, that'll be another thing. I am not talking about gender. I'm talking about masculine and feminine energies that navigate and move and vibrate through every single human being on the planet, and the whole person being the 50-50, regardless of gender, of masculine and feminine.
Yeah. When you think of the masculine and the feminine and how that relates to each one of us, is it like, for me personally, I feel like I have a pretty good balance of both of those things, and they obviously shift and come about at different times in my life, or what I'm going through in the daily. But is there, for most people, do they tend towards having more feminine, whether you talk about wounded feminine or feminine, I guess you wouldn't call them qualities, or not qualities, feminine traits.
Yeah, qualities.
Yeah. Or masculine? Do most people go to one side or the other, or do we all have just like this flowing?
Well, I'll tell you right now, or I'll ask you right now. I say masculine, you think?
Well, usually a man.
Well, okay, so
yeah.
So that's why the conversation, we really we have to honor the fact that society's already told us what that means. Okay, that's been afforded. I'm 51. It's been afforded to me my whole life that feminine meant boobs. And thank the Buddha, at this point in life, we are completely like blending and giving humanity an opportunity to decide on its own, rather than to say, I popped the balloon before I was born and it was blue, so I'm a boy, so I'm da-da-da-da, all of that stuff, although not intentionally wounding, it's affording you an identity without your choice from the very get.
Okay. I get this. And it makes sense completely. And I love it so much. How do we, I mean, going back to that visual of the door, of like walking through the door, how do we, and maybe this is a really broad question, as a society, walk through that door to understand that masculine and feminine isn't male and female? Is it simply just, oh, I just learned this. Now I got to let this sink in and start talking about it differently to people that are in my life? How does that work?
Well, as we continue, you'll probably have to like pull on your ear, give me a signal that goes, Christine, you're going way too deep here. But you are society. You are the universe. You are all of us. So you walk through the door, you send a quantum message into all of us that suggests that we can. That's you doing your part.
So you're basically saying it goes back to the self. Always.
Yes,
Always.
it's all coming from inside the house. You will hear me say that all the time. It is all coming from inside the house.
Your house.
Your
my
house. The second my finger goes out to blame someone else for making me feel that way, quote unquote, I've got to turn. Well, I don't have to. I always say that. My choice is to turn that pointed finger back onto myself, not as a source of blame, but as a source of absolute empowerment that it now belongs to me. I can do something with it. Pointing outward, that whatever I'm pointing at, I have absolutely no control over. So what I do have control over is how I'm responding to it, how I believe somehow in my nervous system that you're making me feel that way. You walk through that door to your little girl, your little boy, your little person in the living room, you take full responsibility for all of it. And it doesn't say I would ever choose it again. And it certainly doesn't say I would wish it on anybody, but it belongs to me. And once it belongs to me, oh, here we go.
And then talk about like the feminine rising and, okay. We were just moments ago, masculine, feminine, talking about that and how in society we've, even me, you said, what does that mean to you? When I say masculine, I said male. And I know that is not the case at all. I would even say that many strong females in my life tend to have more masculine qualities within themselves and how they present themselves. So I guess my question here is, like, it's almost like we flipped the script, right? Completely on its head. And so now we're like peeling back all of these layers to be like, okay, now we have this information. Now I realize it's an inside job and I'm not going to outsource my pain or my healing or my anger or frustration to somebody else. Doesn't mean that I'm not going to be angry.
Oh, no, you're going to integrate it instead of blame it. You're going to integrate it. That's the whole thing with letting it go is so dangerous, because that means that the side of me that actually was saved, my life was saved when I got angry as a child and fought for my place. That saved me. Now I want to let that go? No, I want to integrate it. So when you say when you say masculine and feminine, we have women with masculine qualities, but if I'm aggressive, then I have a wounded masculine in me. We're not talking about masculine or feminine. We're talking about healed. So a healed masculine provides safety, where a wounded masculine is aggressive and dominating. Those two things that I just said come from the same seed. So when you trust, which would be a healed feminine quality, you no longer use irrational, dramatic language or storytelling to stay in a cycle of mistrust. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. No, it completely makes sense. I mean, I can replay moments in my mind where I have been in that place of mistrust, and it's like I'm wearing this as a badge, as if I should be proud that I'm not, like, I can't trust that person. I can't trust that. It doesn't feel good. There's absolutely no power within that whatsoever. And so I clearly see now that I was handing over my power in those situations. And I can't wait to get into like specifics with you when we start talking about, okay, let's dissect something that I'm going through, for instance, and and like show it to our audience of like how we navigated through it from this work that we are talking about of the unraveling. The word unraveling, for most people, I think you would think of it and go, that sounds kind of negative. And the more I sit with it, I'm like, this is pretty amazing to unravel, to unpeel, to dive deeper into. You said tug on my ear if it gets like it feels like it's too much. And what you said was very, very deep. Of course, it's coming from you. And I also understand it. So if we are able to take these conversations that we are having and give real life situations of how this unraveling is really, our inner worlds are affecting the outer world so much more versus the opposite way in. The out coming in keeps us in that wounded space.
The out coming in keeps us the victim.
The victim.
The inside coming out is called authenticity. And when we are authentic and completely unraveled to our most naked self, we not only give ourselves that permission, we give everybody else that permission, and we start to co-create a new earth. Simple.
I just saw you running down the street completely naked, unraveled, dancing to some Michael Jackson.
Yes, to all of that. Let's do it. Let's get naked. Let's unravel. And I mean, I feel time in my life for sure that it's time for that. It's time to allow all the parts of me to be seen primarily by myself instead of blaming the world for not really being able to receive all of who Christine is. That's all coming from inside, and I'm just blaming the world. So,
well, I can confidently say that I am excited for what we have going on here and what's to come. This is awesome.
Take one was amazing.
Yay!
Oh my gosh, that was great. You're good.
So fun.
Thank you so much for joining us in the initial conversations that became the foundation for unraveling the shoulds. We invite you to continue this journey along with us each week as we dive deeper into our truest selves.